Welcome back to the Heater Dynasty Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Heater, your one-stop shop for all your fantasy football needs. And today we are covering the NFL Week 5 DraftKings Main Slate. And this is looking to be a pretty nice slate. But before I get ahead of myself, I want to talk through this tool I'll be using in this video. It's a tool that you can access and purchase. It is my lineup builder tool. It's great for people who like to hand build and have all the information in one spot. So you can find that on my Patreon. It's going to be $15 for a season pass, which will literally give you access to every single NFL main slate and showdown slate for the entire season. It's a great deal. But if you're not ready to pull the trigger on that, you can also just get it as a weekly pass for $5. So I have those up every week. This week, NFL Week 5. You'll click on that. You'll get access to all the slates this week. So obviously Thursday night already happened, but you'll get the Sunday slate. You'll get the International London game, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. And if you like it, it has a promo code in there for $5 off of the season pass. So you're not taking any risk here doing this one. You'll be able to apply that directly to the season pass if you like it. Another place that you can find this is on my Etsy. Exact same thing, just a different platform. Trying to get it out there a little bit more so people will hopefully see it and more people will have access to it. But let's start breaking down this slate here. So it's just a 10-game slate this week because we got 4 teams on bye. And like I said, we already had Thursday Night Football. We have an international game again in London, and then the Sunday night game and the Monday night game. That leaves us with 10 teams, and the top 5 games is what we're really going to be looking at. So the over-under for the projected best game of the week for Main Slate is 49.5. It's the Lions versus the Bengals, and it's a minus 10.5 point in favor of the Lions. So this is definitely a game that has a lot of potential for tournaments. It's a lot of low rostered players for the Lions, which kind of surprises me a little bit. I think it's just because people are scared off of the Bengals since they just haven't been able to do much offensively lately. And but yeah, this is definitely a game we're going to be looking at. The next one would be a 47.5 point over-under between the Chargers and the Washington Commanders. I do think this is going to be a great game because we have received word that Jaden Daniels will be playing, and both of these teams' offenses are able to attack the weakness of the other team. So for Washington, the Chargers aren't able to really stop mobile quarterbacks this year. And for the Chargers, Washington's secondary is kind of a joke right now. So I definitely think there's a lot of potential for a good shootout in this game. So we'll talk about that. We've got the Cowboys versus the Jets. Both of these teams' defenses are horrible, and their offenses are have the potential to score. So I do think these will be a good game as well. This one is going to be highly targeted towards the Jets for cash games, just because of the way the pricing worked out. Justin Fields, Breece Hall, and Garrett Wilson are all huge cash options. We'll talk about that. So on the flip side of that, I think Dallas is a great pivot point for tournaments, and we will talk about that as well. And then the fourth team we're looking at, the Colts versus the Raiders. Daniel Jones has been on fire to start the season. They have the Colts with a minus 7 point line in favor of them, a 47.5 over under. And so I definitely think there's a lot of players on that side that we can talk about. And then the Raiders for bring back, I think Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers are people we'll be looking at. And then the Dolphins versus the Panthers. These are 2 ugly teams, but there are going to be some points scored. And this is the 5th highest over-under with a 45.5 point over-under. It is a toss-up. They only got a minus 1.5 line in favor of Miami. But with Tyreek Hill going down, I do see some possible plays on the Dolphins because of the condensed target share. We've got Devon Achane, we've got Jalen Waddle, and then a sneaky pick of Malik Washington, which we're going to talk about. On the Panthers, I think Tedero McMillan is going to finally have a breakout game for us. You just watch and see. And then with Chuba Hubbard being ruled out for this game, it puts Rico Dowdle as a huge cash savings option for cash lineups. So we'll break that down in a little bit. But first, I wanted to start over here and show you how this tool works. So I've got my player pool here. I've already pre-selected the players that I am interested in, so it will filter out all the other ones. If you go over to the player pool tab, you'll see here on the side, this is what you selected. Okay, so it's nice. It kind of pairs down the list, makes it a little easier to digest, and puts it on the same page as where you're hand building. So I like that feature. And then one other feature that I added this week was I added in a little bit more, some more stats. So I have fantasy points per dropback for quarterbacks, passing yards per game, rushing yards per game, and then value. So just kind of open this up a little bit more just to give you a couple more things to look at. And then running backs, same kind of thing. We expanded it, so now you see the attempts per game, the targets per game, total yards per game, and then the weighted opportunity. This is what I think is huge for running backs. It values their receiving targets a little bit higher than their rushing attempts. So that's what that weighted opportunity is, and then based on their salary. So the higher the number, the more opportunities that they have. So as you can see, we talked about Breece Hall. He is the highest weighted opportunity of any running back this week. Not too far behind him is Javonte Williams. So just something to consider. And let's see here. Wide receivers did the same thing. I threw in the targets for you so you can see what they've been targeted at, their target percentage for the team for this year, their targets per game, their receiving yards per game, and then their value based on their salary. Once again, who do we see at the top? New York Jets, Garrett Wilson. Let's see here. And then tight ends, exact same stats as wide receivers, so we won't spend too much time on that. And then defenses, which is honestly the last position I fill out when I fill out my lineups. So it's kind of what fits, but it does have the value chart here based on their projections compared to what they are, their salary. So let's kind of take a look here at my top plays. So my very top play for quarterbacks is going to be Justin Fields. And it's fairly obvious. He's got the best fantasy points per dropback. He's got the highest value on the slate. And he's super cheap. So, for me, he's going to be locked in. However, if you're looking for a couple different options or you don't want to do the same thing that the field is doing, that's fine. I do think for cash, he's going to be very highly owned. I think he's a very smart pick, but if you wanted to go somewhere else, that's fine. I would say Justin Herbert would be my second option. I would say Daniel Jones. And then Sam Darnold. I think it's a cheap quarterback play this week for quarterbacks. Or cash is what I'm trying to say. For running backs, I think Rico Dowdle is going to be locked in my lineups. For what I said up above, Chuba Hubbard is out. If you look at him here, Rico Dowdle, 4,300, great cash savings. That means he's only going to have to really score 12 to 15 points, which I think is very doable against Miami. You look at the top and you see Michael Carter as a possible option. I think he might be great for tournaments, but like I said, he's not in a highly scored game. I think Arizona's not going to have to really be pushed that hard. And while they said he's the starter, he hasn't played yet. It could be Amari DiMercato. There's just a lot of volatility there. So for cash, I'm not willing to go there. But for tournaments, absolutely. Do what you want. I do think that this is going to be one of those slates where you see Rico Dowdle or some other cheap options, and then possibly 2 pay-up options. So the next person that I think is a good option would be Devon Achane, a little bit more expensive. We've seen him over here. Devon Achane is at 7,300, but like I said, he's going to have a very condensed target share. They're playing the Panthers. It's a good game environment. Another option would be Jonathan Taylor. Same thing. Great opportunities. He's a little bit more of a spend-up option, but you're going to have plenty of savings, and he's just been on fire this year. Plenty of savings because you got a cheap quarterback and some cheap wide receivers, which we're going to talk about. And then the last option I would say is for expensive would be Breece Hall. I would not play Justin Fields, Breece Hall, and the next person we're talking about, Garrett Wilson, in the same lineup. Definitely not for cash. Did I spell Garrett right? Yeah, I did. Cool. I wouldn't play all 3 of them. I think that's just too much for your cash slate. If it's a tournament, go for it. But I do think 2 of the 3 are totally fine. So, but yeah, Garrett Wilson, pretty much locked in. I would also say Jackson Smith and Jigba is locked in for me. I would actually, let me switch this order. I'm going to say Jackson Smith and Jigba is my first option, because I definitely am going to be locking him in without Puka on the slate. I think that's your best option, your spend-up option. I would say Jacoby Myers of the Raiders is a solid option. Chris Olave of the Saints, he's just too cheap. Too many targets. He's still being targeted the second most out of anybody. You come here and you see, so he's getting 10.8 targets a game. That's just crazy. 30.5% of the target share. And yes, he's not scoring a ton, but for DraftKings, it's a PPR site. That'll get the job done. You'll save money elsewhere. For the Chargers, Quentin Johnson, who I never thought I would put in this spot, is on cash. He's just been playing crazy. 25.5% of the target share, 9.3 targets a game. He's a great value. You don't have to overthink it. Just put him in your lineups. And then who else do I have here? Oh, just to keep it rolling with the Chargers, I got Keenan Allen, who is looks 10 years younger than he actually is on the field. Some other options, Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Lions. We've got George Pickens of the Cowboys. And who else did I have? Jalen Waddle. And lastly, Nico Collins. For tight ends this week, my top option is Tyler Warren. He's been playing lights out. The Colts keep targeting him. And you have the option to spend up here because you've saved money with some cheap $5,000 range wide receivers and a cheap Rico Dowdle and some Dustin Fields. So at 13.13 as my projection, 22% of the target share. He's got a great value. I wouldn't fault you if you want to put Juwan Johnson up there, but I would not put him and Chris Olave. That's just too much from a low projected game. So my targets are Tyler Warren. My next option would be Trey McBride. A little bit more expensive, but if you have the cash getting up to him, he has 27% of their target share. And yeah, so I would say Tyler Warren, Trey McBride, followed by then Juwan Johnson and Jake Ferguson. So let me put those in real quick. Trey McBride, Juwan Johnson, and the last option, what did I say it was? Oh, Jake Ferguson. Yeah. For defenses, I see 2 options here. You're either spending up or spending down. So the first team I see is the what did I write down? The Texans. They're playing the Baltimore Ravens without Lamar Jackson. That's a good option. The Saints playing Jackson Dart and the Giants. Got the Colts as a spend up option. They're playing the Raiders, who Geno has been throwing interceptions like it's his job. We've got the Cardinals, who are playing the Titans. And then lastly, the Giants, who are playing the Saints. So both those teams are kind of bad. So you could go either way with that game. Cool. So for top leverage plays, this is where we've listed Quentin Johnson up above. We've listed Keenan Allen. So I think this is one of those games where Ladd McConkey could really break out. I know he hasn't been that great for you yet, but I would leverage him over those players in tournaments. Since they're playing the Washington secondary, who all they're going to do, if they line him up in the slot, he's going to be wide open. The other options, I think David Montgomery is a great option this week to gain leverage off of some of the other Lions players. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're all going to be popular options. I think this is a week where you could see David Montgomery getting a ton of carries because they are just beating the pants off of the Bengals. And if that's the case, David Montgomery could get 2 touchdowns. It's very cheap. It's a good leverage off of some other cheap running backs who are going to have much higher roster percentage, because right now, what are we saying Montgomery has for roster percentage? 6% versus like who we got here? Devon Achane, 32.9%. But as far as the cheap options, Rico Dowdle, 20.2%. Like, there's some pivot points here, for sure. Breece Hall, a cheap option, 32%. Like, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a pivot point there. So leverage off of those players and leverage off of his teammates. And then the last option for this would be, what was I thinking? Oh, another cheap running back, Woody Marks. He just had a huge breakout game, and he's cheap as well. So for dart throws this week, I am looking at Rashid Shaheed as a potential leverage play off of Chris Olave. This is where I was talking about earlier. Malik Washington, with Tyreek Hill being out, he'll be playing opposite of Jalen Waddle. He'll be extremely cheap. He's $3,900. So there's a really good chance that he could 3x that salary easily. And then my last option over here was Darius Slayton. Once again, unfortunately, another injury. Malik Neighbors being out. Darius Slayton has the potential to definitely put up some numbers. And he is also cheap. What is he at? Let's see here. Darius Slayton right here, 4,300. Yeah, so he's a cheap option and has a real good opportunity to 3x that salary there. Yeah, so that kind of breaks down my top plays of the week. Last thing I want to do is I just want to show you a couple stacking options that I've come with that I think will be good leverage against the field. So the very first one would be really targeting the Lions. The reason I think this is helpful is because you've got, this will be a late game option that you could pivot off of for some of the other games. So we can see here. So I got Jared Goff. I'm thinking of putting him with Amon-Ra. Actually, no, sorry. Jameson Williams. And we had Sam Laporta. So getting off the main people there, you can throw in Amon-Ra too if you really wanted to. I don't have a problem with that. Or David Monty, that would be fine too. But for the sake of this, I'm going to say these three, and then you're bringing it back with Jamar Chase, who everyone is scared to play right now with Jake Browning, but Jamar Chase is under 10% roster projection right now. That's crazy. So this is a very cheap roster percentage stack, and also pretty cheap overall. Gives you room to build other things. So you could still put in your popular choices here. You could do like Jonathan Taylor, throw in a Breece Hall, and then if you're coming out, so then Jacoby Myers, maybe Colts defense to go with Jonathan Taylor, and leaves you 4,100. You could throw in Malik Washington, something like that. So I just built that real quick. And yeah, I mean, I think that's something you could do, viable options for you. Reset that. Cool. Another option would be, I think, we talked about going with Dak Prescott as leverage off of Justin Fields. So you stack him with Javonte Williams because of the way that they're running right now, and George Pickens. If you really wanted to do a Lion or a goodness, I'm struggling today. Cowboys onslaught, you could throw in Jake Ferguson. Assuming that basically with a lineup like this, you're saying this is the biggest game of the week, the most points are scored, and you want to get as many pieces in there as possible. So then I would bring it back with someone like either Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson. Is how I would stack this game. But yeah, once again, another cheap option here. A little bit higher roster percentage, but really that's just because I put Garrett Wilson in there. So that's one option for you. Something else I was thinking was I think everyone's going to be off of Baker Mayfield this week because he's not in those top 5 games. But that game has some sneaky options between Tampa Bay and Seattle. I do think a lot of people will be playing some Seattle stacks because Sam Darnold is cheap with Jackson Smith and Jigma. But Baker, Bucky Irving is hurt. This is a potential to really be a pass-heavy game for them. So you could put Rachaad White in there as their receiving back / he's going to get a lot more of the rushing work with Bucky out. Put him with Emeka Egbuka. Maybe just that. I mean, if you wanted to, you could throw in Chris Godwin as well. But I think I like those two together like that. And then bring it back with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Just to gain a little leverage off of that. And then, let's see here. The other one is a lot of people are thinking Herbert because of how bad the Commanders have been last week. But I do think you're going to see a bounce back with Jaden back in there. I do think this could be a really interesting game. So I know he's expensive. Not many people are going to want to play him, though. At 7K, 4.2%. Put Jaden Daniels in there. Run it with Deebo Samuel. Oh, Eric, you can't spell. Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz. Oh, Zach is spelled with an H. There we go. Bring it back with Ladd McConkey. I think this has a lot of potential. Once again, high projected points. If you look at the comparison here, with a lot less roster percentage. So, as you can see, this is a higher percentage, 64.43. And at 55.18, I do think this has some good potential as well. But you're getting a lot less roster percentage. So, those are a couple things I was thinking. Last couple thoughts for you. Don't sleep on Tetairoa McMillan this week. I think he has the potential to be a good pivot point for some of these cheaper wide receivers. So Quentin Johnson, he's the exact same price. Jacoby Myers just a little bit more expensive. So that's definitely a potential. Definitely if you're doing anything with Miami, you could bring it back with Tetairoa McMillan. So maybe we do that real quick. We build a Tua stack. Tagovailoa. You have Devon Achane. Jalen Waddle. Bring it back with Tetairoa McMillan. Or if you need to save a little bit, get off of Jalen Waddle, you could go Malik Washington. So you can fit in some other big studs, something like that. Yeah, so as you can see, that one's not bad either. It's a possibility. I don't know, just trying to give you a couple ideas. Also, I'm thinking this week, if you're looking at defenses, I think it's, like I said, there's going to be a lot of condensed people clicking on the Saints, the Texans, or spending up for the Cardinals or the Colts. So I do think the Giants, the Seahawks, and the Commanders are all some potential pivot points for you. Or the Chargers, if you think that they can roll the Commanders. That's a possibility as well. But, yeah, that's what I got for you this week. I hope this is helpful. Leave me some comments if what your thoughts are. And good luck this week. Once again, I will be putting out a showdown slate for the International London game a little bit later today. So keep your eyes out for that. And, yeah, good luck this week. Until next time.